Hey, everybody, this is Jack Hammer for the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Hope you're all doing well after the 49ers' big 37-15 win today over the Carolina Panthers. I want to come on and give you my thoughts on the game, go through the five questions, the answer to those five questions that I asked yesterday leading up to this as far as the five keys. Talked about those before the game. Just kind of looking through, want to shout out a few folks over in the comment section. Sorry, I was a little bit late on this, so some of you guys have been probably waiting around for a while. William Bennett, great to have you on board. Archon Jetty, Shylock Swindlefolk, one of my favorite names on the show. Savory Movie 197 over there. He's been in here for a while, as well as Raphael 5629ers. He says, this guy's always here. He's one of my favorites. Member of the Toolbox. That's why he's got a $sign next to his name. Says like and subscribe, everyone. Please do. And, this was an interesting game, right? You go through this game, the 49ers, as Savory Movie 197 says here, hey, Jack, great win for the 49ers, but it seems bittersweet. Absolutely. There's the 49ers with a big win, the only team in the NFC West to win today. So they've gone from 1-2 to 3-2 and have a game and a half lead over the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC Western Division. They're kind of pulling away just a little bit, but some big injuries today for the 49ers, starting with Nick Bosa, who left the game right around halftime with some tightness in his groin. You also had Emmanuel Mosley go down late in the game, a little bit under 5 minutes left to play. The 49ers feared that was an ACL injury. He's going to be tested. They'll check him out. I think there'll be an announcement probably tomorrow with regards to Mosley and that injury. And then also they had another defender go down in Jimmy Ward. Ward just coming back from missing the first 4 weeks of the season on IR. He comes in today, makes a couple of plays, gets in for a couple of plays, I should say, and he's out with a broken hand. Not sure what that timetable is going to look like for Jimmy Ward. That had been a lot of discussion this week as far as how he'd be brought back into the fold. We'll talk about that maybe briefly in a little bit. And then last but not least, the 49ers suffered an injury at kicker to Robbie Gould. The injury to Gould has got to be frustrating for the 49ers, who went out and spent a ton of money. I shouldn't say a ton of money, but they made improving their special teams a focus in free agency. And today they gave up 2 long kickoff returns, and that's why Robbie Gould is down. He had to come up and make a tackle on a kickoff return, the second long kickoff return by the Panthers in the second half. 2 of them of over 40 yards. One of them got it out to just short of midfield. The second one did get it to midfield. And the 49ers special teams, they have a new special teams coordinator. They brought in 3 new guys who are supposed to help really rejuvenate that group. And I wouldn't say that the 49ers special teams group is much better than they were in the past. They don't return the ball very well on kickoffs. We obviously saw them struggle on the kickoff coverage today. And punts and punt returns have been okay a couple of times, but for the most part, the 49ers special teams has been really hit or miss, and today was definitely a miss for the special teams. So let's go through. Let's see I'm going to go through my stuff. You guys have some questions. Shylock Swindlefolk jumps in and he says, Trey who? James Foster says, to be honest, I'm a huge Jimmy G guy, but I think they might be 4-1 if Lance stayed healthy. I don't know about that, James. I don't know if I would say they're going to be 4-1. There was plays that were made today that don't get made with Trey Lance. This is what's interesting. You can have this discussion, and it's going to be a tough one to have, because there's plays that Lance is going to make that the Garoppolo doesn't, and there's things that Garoppolo does that Lance can't do, like the deep ball down the left sideline with the guy right in his face, getting that ball up in the air as quickly as he did. I don't know if Lance gets the ball out of his hand on that one. Those types of things. So, I don't want to get into the comparisons between Garoppolo and Lance. That's going to be a fool's errand, because there's going to be somebody mad on either side of that. Let's just stick on what Jimmy Garoppolo did today, first and foremost, and the way that he played. Like I said, the 49ers, they're top the NFC West. They're the only team over 500. And Garoppolo had a very strong game today. He had a rough outing in his first start against Denver, but he's now put together a couple back-to-back performances that have been pretty solid. Last week against the Rams, I kind of knocked him a little bit because so much of what he did was underneath. Today wasn't like that. Today, the ball went down the field quite a bit more. Part of that was because they were giving him time. Part of that was him giving his receivers opportunities while he was about with a guy in his face about ready to get plastered. There was on the opening possession of the game, Garoppolo had a nice ball down the left sideline on a deep throw to George Kittle for a nice gain to kind of get that thing kick started. And then a couple plays later, they had the 41-yard run by Jeff Wilson Jr., and then they get into the end zone on the screen touchdown on the screen throw from Jimmy Garoppolo to Tevin Coleman. Came back in the third 49ers possession, and I think that's the one that most people are going to remember, the throw to Tevin Coleman. Just as Garoppolo is ready to get hit, he lets that thing go down the left sideline. Coleman does a terrific job of jumping up and catching the ball over the top of the Panthers defender for a long gain down the left sideline. I think that one to Coleman was about 30 yards. Just a couple of really nice deep balls there. And you look at the numbers overall for today. Garoppolo threw the ball past 20 yards today 10 times. He doesn't. That's a little unusual for him. And on those 10 throws beyond 20 yards, between that in that distance beyond 10, he was able to complete 5 out of those 10. He had some deep shots that were caught. He had a couple of others that were not so hot. The one to Danny Gray, not so much. But overall, I thought this was a really good day for Jimmy Garoppolo. And you look at it, Garoppolo made his money today on third down. That's what they call third down the money down anyway. And on third down today, Jimmy Garoppolo completed 8 of 9 passes. He was sacked once, so he dropped back to pass 10 times on third down. Completed 8 of those, converted 6 of the 49ers' 7 third down conversions were through the air. And his touchdown to Deebo Samuel also came on third down. So it was a really good day for Jimmy Garoppolo. Like I said, he was 8 of 9 on third. The 6 conversions, the touchdown to Deebo. There was another completion to George Kittle for pickup of 5, which set up a field goal for Robbie Gould late in the first half. So overall, I felt like this was a pretty good Jimmy Garoppolo game. And most importantly, and this is where Jimmy Garoppolo where this 2022 version of the 49ers, at least through this point, we're going to see as they go forward because of those injuries that they sustained today. But the 49ers defense is so good that as long as Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't turn the ball over, they're going to win a lot of games. And Garoppolo didn't turn the ball over for the second time in a row, 2 touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. No turnovers by Garoppolo through the air or on the ground. So just a really solid day for Jimmy Garoppolo today. Even those that are his biggest detractors, I think, need to look at this game and say that he played a fairly clean game today. And obviously there's a couple of things that you want to clean up. There was a pass over the middle that got broken up that he put in a really bad spot, the Deebo Samuel, that could have gone the other direction. There were some negative things that he did as well. But I think for the most part, when you look at Jimmy Garoppolo today, you have to come away from this one looking, on the positive side. And, going into this game, I talked a little bit about how the 49ers with Garoppolo had averaged about 6.98 net yards per pass attempt. And they were taking on a Carolina defense that was pretty good. They were ninth. They had the 9th best in the league. I know Carolina was missing 3 defenders, 3 starters on defense, both of their safeties and the linebacker. Garoppolo and the 49ers offense were able to post a net yards per pass attempt today of over 7 yards. So that's pretty solid. That puts you right around inside the top 10 in the NFL with that number. And it wasn't so much. There was definitely some yak today, but not quite so much as there was last week against the Los Angeles Rams. So overall, pretty darn good day for Garoppolo. Let me take a look really quick and see what we got over here. Just real quick, wanted to take a look at some of the Shylock says, look at that. You see the clutchness of Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a big Jimmy Garoppolo fan, obviously. 14 Ace Windu says, Jimmy, great game manager, starting to air it out. That is something, he's an interesting guy, because I wouldn't say he's a game manager because of the way that he wings the ball around the field. If he was a game manager, he wouldn't turn it over quite so much. But there's a portion to his game that's game manager-esque, and that I think in some of that's because of the way that the game's called by Kyle Shanahan. It doesn't allow him to necessarily ruin the game for you at times. William says, Jack, Kittle blocked so much that he can't hold on the ball now, right? He had the one catch down the sidelines. He also had the catch where he fumbled it and turned it over. And James Foster with a good point. He says Kittle just fights for yak, and guys come up from behind him. I'm sure in defensive meetings, the opponents are punching. The coaches are telling them to punch and try to knock the ball out as they're running for that yak yardage. I can see that. On the one day, I don't know if it was so much that as far as he just didn't have a very good tight grip of the ball, and the guy came up behind him, knocked it out, and it was a bad turnover there by Kittle. Just a bummer of a play there. Going back to this game, one of the other things that I talked about in the pregame show was, can the 49ers get the run game going? The 49ers have really been struggling to run the ball since Jimmy Garoppolo took over and replaced Trey Lance. They were averaging about 3.5 yards per game with Jimmy Garoppolo quarterback. Since the second quarter of the game against Seattle, up until the start of today's game, the 49ers had ran the ball for 3.5 yards per rushing attempt. Today, that switched. It was a much different case today. Jeff Wilson Jr. ran the ball 29 times. Jeff Wilson Jr. led the 49ers in rushing as the team ran the ball total for 29 times for 153 yards. So 29 carries for the 49ers today, 153 yards. That's their most on the ground since week 2 in their win against Seattle. Remember, they had over 180 yards the first 2 weeks of the season. Wilson's performance on Sunday was his best, I think, was the best since 2020. He went out there, he had 17 carries, 120 yards. You saw a 41-yard burst on that opening possession on the 2nd and 9 run to the left side. Thought he might even take a house call on that one from the 50, but got all the way down to the 9. A couple plays later, Tevin Coleman put it in the end zone on a screen like we talked about earlier. Very good, really good game for Wilson. What I liked about Wilson's day-to-day, he also scored a touchdown late on a 1-yard run. What I liked about his day-to-day is he had a number of positive carries. It wasn't so much, throughout a game, there's always going to be a few stops here and there on the run game. But I just felt like today the run game was more consistent. It wasn't just one big play and then a bunch of bad ones to kind of bring you back to the middle. There was a good mix of positive carries by Jeff Wilson Jr. and also by Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman had a nice run around the right side right before halftime when the 49ers got that field goal. It was really set up by a 12-yard carry by Tevin Coleman. And then right after that, you had Deebo Samuel on a gain of 9. That picked up 23 yards. And then from that point, you had Garoppolo with a couple of incompletions before you hit Kittle on 3rd down for a gain of 5 to make it a little bit shorter field goal for Robbie Gould. So I don't know. I just felt like this game overall, the 49ers run game was much better. Jeff Wilson obviously had a big part of it. Tevin Coleman just brought onto the team a couple weeks ago, played a couple of snaps last week against the Rams. He saw some extended playing time here. We talked already about the terrific reception down the left sideline that he had in the first quarter. He ended up finishing with 23 yards, a touchdown on 8 carries. Good day for Tevin Coleman as well. You're not going to see a lot. Coleman's one of those guys. He's the grinder. Tevin Coleman, Jeff Wilson Jr., that gives the 49ers a pair of grinders. Wilson, though, has shown some bursts in these last 2 games, and I would be remiss to not say, I've kind of been harping on the 49ers need to get Jordan Mason in the game because of their need to have a home run threat. Jeff Wilson Jr. has had a couple of really big runs over these last couple of weeks. I do think that if that was Mason on that long run in the first quarter, he scores a touchdown. It doesn't even get to the screen. But the way Jeff Wilson Jr. is running the ball right now, he's solid. He's looking really good. It's hard to knock him for that at all. James wants to know, what's the running back depth chart once Mitchell comes back? Keep Coleman? Well, I think this all depends on what else is happening with this team. Obviously you've got Mitchell coming back. You also have Ty Davis Price that has to come back. So I think once it all starts to unfold, at some point, I think Coleman slides either off the roster or back maybe to the practice squad or something like that. But once Mitchell comes back, he's going to be RB1. And then I think behind, Ty Davis Price is probably going to be in the mix somewhere too, behind Jeff Wilson Jr. I think Jeff Wilson Jr. is still going to be your second guy, but it's just going to depend. There's a lot of this depth chart has a number of pieces on it already that will be coming off of the reserves, that are beat up right now. But they got a number of guys that are going to be coming back. So I think this running back room is really solid. It's starting to show its depth, and I really appreciate that super chat, James. And I know you have another one down here. Actually, this is from William Bennett. Thank you for your super chat. He says, "Subscribe, keep up the good work." Thank you, William. I appreciate it. You know, that's one of the things on this channel. We try to keep things as even headed as possible, even keel. Try to give you the good and the bad, but try not to just hammer on guys until they prove us wrong. We try to keep it a little bit more even-handed and just talk about the game. Let the players make the story instead of trying to create the story ourselves. William also asks, Jack, I'm not mad at the running backs today, but why can't we see Mason specifically when we are up big? Okay, now that last part of that question, that's a good one. I would like that. That actually is a good point. Why not give him some carries when they're up big? I think part of the reason we don't see Jordan Mason very much, and I talked about this before the game, but I think the main thing, the reason we're not seeing Jordan Mason is it seems to me like the 49ers coaching staff doesn't trust him in pass protection. There's really, from what we've seen of him running the ball, I think he fits just fine. But there just seems to be some kind of that has to be what's holding him back. It's his ability to get up in pass protection and stop in that area. That's the only thing that I can think of. So when they're up big like this today, and you know that you want to try to grind it out, maybe that last series, put him in there, let him take some of those hits. Maybe just take some of them anyway when the score gets to 23 to, what was it, 24, 23. I think it was 24 to 15 at one point. Put Mason out there. Let him have a couple of runs. Put him out there in a couple spots where you know you're going to be running the ball. And just let him get some carries and let him get into the flow of game. Maybe even let him, pass protect once or twice just to show you that he can do it. So that's a really good question, and that's something that I wonder myself. I would like this. I think that he's on the roster because they don't want him to go somewhere else, but at the same time, there's something that's keeping him from doing anything other than playing special teams, and I think it's the pass protection. Kiev 1967, great game, Jack. I really like that Shanahan changed the game plan to emphasize getting Jimmy to get the ball deeper than he usually does. It looked good seeing Jimmy pushing the ball. It opened up the run. Yeah, I think you're right. I think pushing the ball down the field helped out. I think the fact that the Panthers were down their safeties helped with the decision to kind of try to push the ball down the field early on. A lot went into that. And then also, the other part of the game plan this week that was different was getting the ball to George Kittle. I know I talked a lot last week about how it wasn't a big deal with Kittle not getting the touches because he was helping out in the run game. Today, you saw them do a couple of things early on to put the ball in Kittle's hands, kind of get him going, kind of quiet down all that noise around that. But I still don't think it was a big day for George Kittle. I mean, he had 5 catches. He had 6 targets today. It wasn't like, he had 4 targets. He had 4 targets on Monday night. He had 2 more targets. We'll see if everybody wants to keep talking about George Kittle and his lack of targets this week. Again, 4 targets on Monday night, 2 targets more today, only 6 on the game. But couple nice play to start the game. The nice throw down the sideline should have been a nice completion. The second one as well, the third one as well. But we'll see how this thing plays out for the 49ers as they move forward. Then we have G Code Travels Vlog POV says McGlinchey wasn't good last season. What's his grade this season? Thank you for the super chat there, G Code. I think McGlinchey's doing fine. If I was going to give him a grade, I'd give him probably a B minus. I think he's solid in the run game, struggles a little bit in the pass. I would say he's probably a B in a B when it comes to run blocking, and he's probably a C when it comes to the pass protection. So average those two out, give him a B minus. Did Burford play that bad to get benched? Kyle really hates his work. I don't think it's about Burford playing bad. I think what's going on is they're rotating these guys out. If you looked at the game today, Matt, you saw Brunskill play both sides. He took some reps away from Burford at right guard. He took some reps away from Banks at left guard. Remember, his role primarily for Daniel Brunskill, he's going to be that swing interior player, left guard, center, right guard. So they're trying to get him reps everywhere. he didn't have a preseason because of the injury. So when you get him some reps and it doesn't really hurt you, I think that's what helps you out. Andrew says, hey, Jack, do you think Shanahan made an effort to reduce Samuel's carries? Maybe it's not needed against a bad team. I think he's made an effort to reduce Samuel's carries. I think part of that is he hasn't been that effective. So when it's not going for big gains like it was last year, you kind of back off on that a little bit. So I think it's an effort to use Samuel and keep him. I think for the Flyers, they want to keep Samuel right around 7 to 8 touches a game. Today, he had only 2 carries for 12 yards. One of them was for 9, the other went for 3. And then they tried to get him the ball a lot in the pass game, but one thing or another led to, I think Devo had a couple of drops today. There were a couple of passes that went his direction that got tipped at the line of scrimmage on screens. So it was they're trying to get him the ball in different ways. It hasn't been quite as effective out of the backfield as it was in last year. So I think that's partly where we are with that right now. They want to get him the ball in different ways, and that's really what it is. Austin asks, how do you think the Steed line will be without Bosa? I'm scared of him and E-Man out. Okay, this is a good question. Today the 49ers were able to rack up 6 sacks today, none of those by Bosa. The 49ers defensive line has a lot of depth. That was one of the things that we talked about throughout the offseason. The 49ers defensive line did a pretty good job in 2020 when Bosa was down. Not as good with him, obviously, much better with him, obviously, but they have a pretty good defensive line, even if he's not on the field. That's one of the positives there. And then if Emmanuel Moseley's out, that's where Jason Verrett comes in. Talked about that earlier on this week. Wrote an article about how do Jimmy Ward and Jason Verrett fit coming back. You remember they're both brought back to the team in terms of their practice windows were open. And I said earlier this week, I felt like Jason Verrett was in a role. Jimmy Ward was in a role where he was going to play right away because they like to play. They have the ability to play 3 safeties anyway at one time. We saw that. That's how the 49ers started this game out, was with 3 safeties. But then when it comes to Jason Verrett, I felt like Jason Verrett's role would be to be the guy coming off of the bench. Emmanuel Moseley, Charvarius Ward, both have injury histories over the last few years. Neither of them have played a full season. They've both missed extended time over the last couple of years. It's awful to see Moseley go down in the way that he did. I think that's where Jason Verrett steps up, and you might see his getting up to speed or ramped up this week. And I think you probably see Jason Verrett be the guy that takes the start on. I would not be surprised to see Jason Verrett start against Atlanta. My only thing where I reel that back a little bit is because it's on the turf in Atlanta, and they might decide that they want to hold him back until they get back to Levi Stadium and make Jason Verrett's first start be at home on the grass at Levi Stadium, because the 49ers are going to have a lot of games on grass at Levi's after this week. So it's kind of one of those things you might as well start to work it out. William Bennett with the $2 super chat. Jay Moore was terrible. He gave up the sack to Brian Burns. That's a total mismatch. He's going to struggle in that mismatch, in that matchup 10 times out of 10. He needs help. I don't know if I would say he was terrible. I felt like he was okay. But for the most part, the 49ers won with their 3rd string left tackle. And you can go out and do that. You got to give props to Moore for being able to hold up as well as he did. And also Kyle Shanahan and Chris Verster for being able to get him to be able to build a scheme around having your 3rd string left tackle in the game. So don't disagree with you, though, William. I don't know if terrible is the word that I'd use to describe his play, but it wasn't solid. It wasn't good. That's for sure. Alan says, Jack, today was a great game. Looking forward to you and Rob breaking it down tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that too. It's always a fun discussion with Rob on the Hammerhead Show. Matthew says, Jack, not game related. Just want to say I like watching your all 22 vids. And when Lance plays next year, I expect you to call out bad QB play, just like Jimmy. Good is good and bad is bad. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I took a lot of heat for at the beginning of the year when I talked about how the way that some of the things with Lance. I take some heat when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo as well. But when you play good, you get praised, and the bad plays you get criticized, and that's always going to continue forward. So I appreciate that, Matthew. Kia wants to know, Jack, why so much changing on the D line? Brunskill wasn't blocking Burford on the first long run, smashed this guy. Banks was getting schooled by 99 and 95. We need Trent back. Well, all they're doing right there is Brunskill's working his way back. He didn't have any preseason, so they're trying to get him snaps and get him ready to go at both spots. It's hard to take your center out in the middle of the games with the way that the snaps go. So unless there was an injury there, Brendel's not going to come off the field in the middle of the game. So that's all they're doing there. They're just trying to get reps and snaps for everybody. I really appreciate that, Matt. Those were kind words. Raphael 5629 is back, and he says he always does such a good job with this. Like and subscribe, everyone. Please do. If you're liking what you're hearing and you're not subscribed to the channel already, if you're liking it, make sure you hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, just hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell notification so you don't miss when we go live. Also, on kind of talked about, haven't gotten to this part of it yet, but the 49ers offense, can they score 17 points? That was one of my big questions heading into today. And the answer is yeah. This was the second time in the first 5 weeks of the season that they've been able to put up more than 17 points. They didn't need it today because they ended up giving up only 15. But thank gosh they did, because otherwise it would have been a lot tighter game at the end, right? It was a pretty solid effort throughout for San Francisco for the offense. I felt like they averaged 6.8 yards per play, converted on 7 of 12 third downs. And for one of the few times this season, we saw the offense show the ability to string together plays. And that resulted in the offense managing 3 long touchdown drives of 75 yards. That was really good to see. There were some explosive plays that were mixed in there. But those long touchdown drives from the 49ers, those were missing over the first few weeks of the season. We saw, definitely week 1, they didn't have it. Week 3, they didn't have it. And even last week, they struggled with it to an extent. So it was really good to see that offense get together, get some rhythm, make some really nice plays all over the field. Very, very good looking for the defense today. And then this is a really good one. I'm going to talk about the defense, and I'm going to get into that question. That's a really good question, Rafael. I want to get into that one in just a minute. But let me talk really quick about just the defense overall, because I asked the question, can the 49ers defense keep delivering? The answer to that obviously was yes. They had those setbacks we talked about earlier, the injuries and all those types of things. Despite all of that, they held Carolina to only 15 points, held Carolina to only 4.7 yards per play, had 6 sacks on the quarterback. Mosley made, I think, the biggest play of the game. It was only 10-3 going in late in the first half. The 49ers had just, had just missed on a third down around midfield and punted the ball away. So it was kind of a tight game there. And you had Emmanuel Mosley just in the right spot. Baker Mayfield overthrows the receiver, hits Mosley right in the numbers, right in the chest. Mosley picks it off at the 41. Takes it back the other way, gives the 49ers a 17-3 lead. And I think that play right there just took all the air out of Carolina. I know they had some good plays in the second half, but that interception and pick 6 by Mosley was a big one. It looked like Carolina had a chance right there to get some momentum, but they just couldn't get it they couldn't take advantage. And it swung the opposite way. The 49ers defense doing their thing and getting the pick and taking it the other direction. Raphael 5629. Now I'm going to get to your question. Raphael is a member of the Toolbox. That's why he's got that cool little dollar sign next to his name. He says, so if you're just new to the channel and you're liking and subscribing and all that kind of stuff, think about joining the channel as well and becoming a member. There's going to be some cool members only things that are going to be coming up very soon. As far as the better coordinator day, Kyle Shanahan or DeMeco Ryans, I really like what both of these guys are doing. I have a great amount of respect for Kyle Shanahan and DeMeco Ryans. I am going to say this really quick about DeMeco Ryans. He's been fantastic. He's also has, I think when you look at DeMeco Ryans and what his job is, they have a ton of talent on that defensive side. I know the 49ers have a lot of talent on offense, but they even have more talent on the defense. And he's done a terrific job. He came in, Ryans took over for Robert Saleh, who had done a pretty good job in 2020. He stepped right in last year. They struggled a little bit early on. with some pass interference things and that kind of stuff. They got that righted as the season went along. But his team, his side of the ball, D'Amico Ryan's defense has just been outstanding. They've, at one point today, after the pick six by Emmanuel Mosley, I tweeted out that over the last game and a half, the 49ers offense has scored 3 touchdowns and the defense has scored 2. So it was I'm going to say the better coordinator today. D'Amico Ryan's should get a ton of credit for what he's done. I think Kyle Shanahan should deserve a lot too. I don't know if I want to say what one of these guys is better than the other, because I think today both sides of the ball did what they wanted to do. The offensive side did a terrific job of holding on to it. Like I said, long drives, which has been a little bit of a change because they haven't been able to really sustain those quite so much. But 3 75-yard drives, almost 400 yards of total offense, 6.5 yards per play at the end there. So just a really good offensive performance. And on the defensive side, they held Carolina to 4.7. They did a really good job against the Panthers in the run game. They held them in the run to only 3.8 yards per carry. Carolina came in today averaging 4.5. So they held them about almost a full yard below their season average. And they did to Baker Mayfield what everybody's done to Baker Mayfield. They made him look silly, picked him off, didn't really give up much to him. Mayfield was only 20 of 36 for 215 and a pick. Really good effort out of both sides. So I give major kudos to both of the coordinators today. It was a really good job. Let's just see really quick what else there is. Andrew asked, I know it's a nonsensical question, but would you trade Lance for Russell Wilson in the offseason? Hell no. No. If I'm going to trade Trey Lance, it would be to Minnesota for Kirk Cousins. That was because that was something that came up earlier a couple weeks ago. You might remember me talking with Jesse on the Hammer and Nail show about. But there's no way in heck would I trade Trey Lance for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's not that guy anymore. Trey Lance, we'll see. I don't know what he's going to be because he's got the injury and he's missing a lot of time right now. I think this team I think the 49ers would be 3-2 right now if Trey Lance was the starter. I don't think their record would be any different. So I look at that and I'm pretty. I don't like that one. That's not a good question, Andrew. I love you, but that's not a good question. That's actually a good question. It's just the answer is no. Kia says, Jeff Wilson, 7.1 yards per attempt is ridiculous. Absolutely. And that's what happens when you rip off a 41-yarder. But he also had a number of other, like I said, that was one of the things with Wilson's performance today that I liked was it wasn't just a 41 on his other, he had that big 41-yard carry, but then on his other 16 carries, he still gained 80 yards on those as well. So just a really good overall performance today by Jeff Wilson Jr. Got to really give him a lot of props for his game today. And the other thing is the 49ers are 3-2, the only team in the NFC West above 500, a game and a half over the Rams right now, game and a half over Seattle, in that one game up on Arizona. Their first meeting is going to be coming up on Monday Night Football in a few weeks. It's going to be in early November. That'll be that first matchup. Before that, though, the 49ers, big win today on the road in Carolina. Some injuries, though. Nick Bosa, groin. Robbie Gould, left knee. We have a knee injury for Emmanuel Mosley that we're going to be getting more information on, and then Nick Bosa with the tight groin. So definitely some injury concerns. The 49ers aren't going to be coming back to San Jose this week, or Santa Clara, excuse me. They're not going to be coming home. They're going to be staying out on the East Coast at the Greenbrier up in West Virginia before they head back down to Atlanta for the game against the Falcons. So unfortunately, I won't be able to be there for any of the practice coverage this week, but I'll be blocked in just like everybody else to get as much information as possible from the 49ers with everything. So that's it for today. Just want to say thanks to everybody for tuning in. It was a really good performance, on all those 5 questions that I asked the 49ers. to do? Get the run game going? Yes. Big run day. Will the Flyers move the ball through the air? Yes. Will the Flyers offense score over 17 points? Yes. Will the defense continue on just dominating like they've been doing? Yes. And then who protects the ball the best? And that was the 49ers. And that's the recipe for winning for this team. Run the ball, make some good throws, hit those timely throws when you need them. Like I said, Garoppolo today, all 7 49ers third down conversions coming off of the right arm of Jimmy Garoppolo. He also had a touchdown pass on third down as well. So a really good performance today for the 49ers. So I want to say thank you to everybody that took the time to join in. We have James Foster over here with one more super chat. Says, thanks, dude. Thank you, James. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Matt, for hitting that like button. I appreciate you as well. Ellen says, great show. Jack, Debo that like button. Everybody, please do. Hit that thing so hard that it sticks and just keeps hitting like over and over. But Raphael 5629ers, he's my man. He says, like and subscribe, everybody. Please do that. And then also get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. Check out the Inside the Flyers blog over there. They're the ones that pay for me to be doing this. Them, along with your super chats and all your views and those types of things, are what allow me to do this. Need to keep growing this channel so that I can get to these games on the road, and get to as many as I can. And I have a credential for the games, but I have to pay for my own travel to and from and hotel and all those kind of things. So that's where I ask you guys to hit that like button. Let your friends know about the channel. Let your friends know about the Inside the Flyers blog over there, and help me to continue growing this thing so we can get more and more content to you. The sooner I can do this full time, the better your content is going to be as well. So thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great rest of your Sunday night. I'll be back tomorrow night with Rob Shue for the Hammerhead show, the Monday edition. Take care. Talk to y'all soon.